In 2010, I published a book, and on 1973. I had just come from the village, so I was the village urchin amongst the president's first children. Of course, I'm his child, but for me, the whole thing was a wonderland. And my stepmother, who's the mother of Hussein Lumumba, he's very vocal on social media. He's there, Hussein Lumumba. They made them the wise men with Joseph and another Lumumba, Adroa. Then they gave Francis Adroa as Mary, and the doll. The doll had just been bought in Russia, and it was for Kide Amin. Then there's Machomingi Amin and Tileku Amin. So this is actually this picture represents the first time I entered my father's family. Yeah, the luxurious, formal setting from a village setting. So for me, this is a significant picture to me. You can see the sense of wonder. You can see somebody who's perceptive, but in a young body. I'm 53 now. Here in 73, I was 7.
What was life like for the children at that time?
I can only say it from my angle. Remember, from a village urchin to the first son, there's a sense of wonder. It's almost like, in England we call it Alton Towers. In America you've got Disneyland. The formalities, the parade, the uniformity, and then there's a unique picture at the end where there's this constant move towards uniform. You'll notice a lot of the strong men had this knack of wanting everybody to look alike. Yeah. So uniformity was an important factor. But for me, the warmth of being welcomed, yet I was the type of person who thought I was my grandmother's child. You know, when you live long enough with your grandmother, you start calling her mom, not grandma. Yeah. So this is a moment in my life.
So how would you move around? What was travel?
On state travel, there were convoys. You see the Pullman outside. There's a Pullman Mercedes,
yes.
and the Phantoms. That's a Phantom 5. The one. I hope they'll restore those cars. I could bring one of the old ladies, and they might cry just looking at them. For me, after this, or before this, there was a wedding, an amazing wedding, and the 2 cars were part of the convoy. Yeah? So seeing them there and then seeing a picture connecting the two, it's almost a seamless life. And rather than listening to researchers, I always complain, a life lived is a life recalled. You say, I quickly, instantly know who's in the picture because I'm there. But a life researched is a life misunderstood. I was having issues with the man pointing out somebody and claiming somebody else. For example, they went for a very short person, and I said, this is Ali Tawili. I said, do you know what Tawili means in Nubian? It means tall. He was practically, and the man is tall, the European fellow, the Australian. I'm like, he's taller than you, he was taller than you, so this man in the police uniform is Ali Tawili.
Well, one of the things that's really struck us about the collection as a whole is how many pictures there are of domestic scenes. I mean, were there a lot of photographers around, these official photographers?
No, he had official photographers. There's one person I really want you people to talk to. He's in Toro. He keeps claiming one famous picture of him, of dad swimming, caused him problems. But for me, that is the narrative I don't like. People revolving around escape. It's become a sweet narrative with a lot of people. What would a picture of my father swimming cause you havoc? Apart from saying that he was in the deep end because of the Kagera War. So that picture sort of represented that for example, today I saw a picture in social media, and they were trying to ask people what it meant. There was a lady walking in the kitchen with water up to her neck. No one could understand the saying, in up to your neck. So that famous picture of my father swimming, like so, could be even one of these pictures, and then him in the pool, by the way. It could be that one. But this looks positively Mediterranean to me. Huh? That just doesn't look Ugandan, huh?
The person who took that photo
Is most likely the one who took the one dad in the water. Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
But were there many photographers in the house itself? Or
Dad was an avid photographer. The same Taban, if you talk to him nicely, we probably have 3 trunks just full of Dad's pictures. He was an avid photographer.
He also took
My father was a photographer, and then he practically learnt with all the AGFA group what to do with photography, and that's the reason he sent the whole group to Germany for training with AGFA.
How many did he send for
The
training?
whole UBC, before the launch, because they were supposed to be ready. Okay, this is the point. You go to 73 to Morocco, and you see all the paraphernalia, Technicolor, colored televisions, Toshiba and whatever, and you just basically want the same thing. When you ask King Hassan, he says Germany, just go to Siemens and whichever, then you can go to Marubeni in Japan. So these people come, bring their stuff. Before you bring something, during the British time, if you've bought a machine, you have to allocate several technicians to go and train to use the machine. It's not a question of going to the streets and sending somebody to try and get an expert in the particular field. Amongst the staff are sent for training, and these are the ones sitting there. You'll find a lot of them ended up in a lot of these just before the launch of the OAU.
If you compare these pictures here, which were taken by the official photographers, with the ones that your father himself took, do you see differences, similarities?
He loved group photos. My dad was a gatherer. Huh? My dad was a gatherer. But then he also liked spur of the moment. That's the beauty. The 70s was the whole period of Polaroid, instant photography. You know, quit. You're taking some more. While this is dry enough, you give to somebody else, and we're always fighting for the copies. It's a unique snapshot. In fact, nowadays cameras are getting back to that. They're coming out in a big way, using the same color. You know that smudgy, sweet, bittersweet colors of the 70s. They're actually making cameras with a similar focal point. Huh? And he loved spur of the moment pictures, and he loved. There's a famous one he did with me. This is the personal one. I've just come from the village. It's before that, but we had gone to in '71. We had gone. He had taken the whole family to Arua, and I had a pot belly because I think I was suffering from kwashiorkor. And I always had, because of sinus, I still suffer from it. There was all smudge on me, and he took that picture, and he blew it up into an A3. He kept it in his briefcase. Every time I started becoming haughty and uppity, he'd say, "But Jafar, do you know where you came from?" The whole family would go, "Quick, quick, 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 quick." One day, when I was old enough, 16 in Saudi Arabia, I went, "Snap." I enjoyed tearing it up, but today I regret. It's those spur of the moment pictures. Yeah? So you'll see you with mucus caked all over your face. The way I keep looking at cameras, that has always been me with cameras. And I love those. Those are the ones I collect. And one day my brother told me, "Jafar, do you know almost half of the pictures are of you?" I said, "What? All these trunks are just full of your pictures." I said, "No, I spent more years between 80 and 89 with him." So,
Did you used to make family photograph albums as well?
yeah. No, it's a tradition. He's an old. By the way, there's one person you people should have. He's a Singh, wonderful mane of white. He always has his glasses. He's called Singh. He was actually the family photographer. He's still around. Camera Pix. The owner of Camera Pix near the Sikh temple. That's the family photographer.
But he's still around.
He's around, a handsome man with nice specs. Now, he would he would always do the professional, the AGFA way. And I understood AGFA because, you know the sleeve where you put the negatives? Huh? There's always an AGFA sign. Huh? Yeah? And what I hated, because we really liked pinching pictures, was trying to open. It's not like the shelves you have nowadays. In that one. As long as you pulled it, you might even destroy pictures, because they used to put glue behind them. So now the tragedy of those pictures were in the present North Korean embassy right now, which is practically our family home. They destroyed all the pictures, and they made a show of showing all the pictures strewn all over the living room. Yeah.
When was that?
79. When change of revolution, pictures are more, suffer more than humanity. What I mean is we destroy images. It's called a purge. Yeah? So purging involves just burning what you find. And
Can you tell us more about what life was? Was it a normal childhood? Could you play?
Dad was an ordinary person. In Buganda, they call them omuntu wa bulijjo, everyday people. That's the direct translation. He was not into being of a high class, despite the fact by 61, him and the Maimunas were already living in Kololo. But because he lived with his mother, he had a mothering nature. That was his. You see the gathering? Huh? I wouldn't realize he's behind there orchestrating the pictures, but he loved group photography. He really liked that. He was a man for the occasion. That's why I remember in Australia. You're from Australia?
I'm Australian.
There's a wonderful 1976 documentary. It's the most positive documentary I've ever, for Australian TV. He was like, Idi Amin is a man for occasions. He'll do a parade just for the fun of it. Yeah, so that type of gathering. And the holy days.
When you're living in State House, do you get any news about the outside world? Would you have television, newspapers, those things?
He was the most media-savvy president we've ever had. He was not the Stalinist, Maoist type. He was broadcasting. We practically hated news. There was news in Luganda, news in Lubara, news in Arabic, news until we only had to wait at 10 when the film started. Is there Maulire over? Yeah, it's almost said. Let's go and have our dinner, then it'll be over. We were bored stiff by what he did, where he has been. Do you know what I always say? Idi Amin was the first person to do the CNN concept. News for almost from 7 up to 10. News coverage.
And would the children ever go on these like public occasions? Would the children ever attend those as well?
The ones who normally would go are the favorite ones. Moses up here, and Mwanga. Moses, because the uncle had claimed he had been sacrificed, so he was like an exhibit. For all the international leaders, he'd always point, like to the Bokassa in that picture, he'd always point, this is the child they claim I sacrificed. So it's a macabre, a surreal moment where you always had to prove the existence of the child, because the mother was already in exile. So you can imagine that.
Can you tell us anything about the end of those years, so 79? What memories do you have?
We had been vacated from Kabale. Kabale is Kigezi, down where the Bwindi forests are. But there's a town called Kabale. But we could not pass through Mbarara and Masaka because it had been cut off. So he sent a platoon with some Tutsi fellow called Tirikwendera Tirikwendera came with a bus, and he passed Mbarara and Masaka just before the liberators took over. When he got to Kabale, they waited until the evening, then they collected us around 8 in the evening. But instead of heading from Mbarara, they headed towards Kisoro, the Buindi area, that beautiful area of the gorilla area. Yeah, they actually had to go through Rwanda, then you turn, circumvent, right round what was called in his name Amin, Lake Amin. People confuse Albert as Amin. No, that was Lake Mobutu. But there's a lake this end, given in his name, and then the other one is Rweru. Rweru is Edward. So there's Lake Edward. Lake George was the one that was turned to Lake Amin because it's on both sides. So we had to go round the lake, then come through the Kazinga Channel, then up Hotel Margherita in Kasese. We waited there up to 6 in the evening because a King Air flight was being serviced at Wilson Airport in Nairobi. So they picked us up. When we arrived, he loved the drama. He said, "By the way, you people survived anti-aircraft fire as you headed towards Mpiji. These people are very clear here, and you hear the boom sound that started, boom." You know, it's almost like New Year's Day. The last firecrackers you hear, the last ones. That's how war advances. We were placed in Norman Godino. Today they call it Buganda Road. Primary. I was running one day and I twisted my legs. They took me to the 6th floor, Mulago. It was practically a hotel. Since 75, they'd really made that place, and it was first class. That's the first time I would see, you know the funny Mr. Bean films where the bed sort of knocks you in the middle like a sandwich. Those were the first time I saw those funny beds. For me, it turned into my brother's MiG-21 plane. And the nurse would find me just constantly. It turned into a MiG-21. But the terror of the lights going off because they didn't want the people in Mpiji to have the artillery viewpoint of specific buildings in town. And for them it was a scorched earth policy, so they were bombing everything because they'd already bombed Mbarara, they'd bombed Masaka, and they were really coming in for Uganda because they ended up bombing Bulange, not because of Amin, but ironically because it's the most important place for Buganda, by the way. You can imagine the people who were coming back in had more bones to pick with the Buganda for supporting Amin for 8 years. So their first bomb landed in Bulange. You see where Mutebi's statue is, just right there, the garden. But for me, the terror, there's nothing as worse as the whistle of an artillery shell. And I think that was the moment it hit Bulange. Now, across the reverberations across hills is incredible.
Can you tell us what life was like in Saudi after that?
We went for 9 months in Libya. The craziest thing I realized about Libya was in the depth of winter in the Swiss Alps, there was what we call a mistral. A mistral is a crazy wind, where you're standing in Libya, it's hot, but across the Mediterranean, the cold, an amazing cold front. So I used to keep telling my brothers, look at the sun is right at midday. It is blinding hot, but your face is freezing. I found out the name of that wind. There's a mistral because I read a book. And when I was reading the beginning of the book, I just remembered Libya. We fell into the habit of eating camel meat. We started getting fat. Started building a lot of weight. The immobility of just being in a hotel with breakfast, lunch, tea, and you just pick up weight very quickly. So and there was a whole delegation of all his loyalists. Yeah, so all diplomats, instead of going back to Uganda, all headed for Libya. So he had to take up a whole hotel for that purpose. Yeah. Then from there we ended up in a more seclusion. Saudi Arabia is luxury in seclusion. It's like being at Acacia Mall, but you can't walk onto the streets. I'm just giving an example of seclusion. But for us boys, it was okay. It was really hell for the girls.
So what would you do? How would you fill up your day?
Prayer, sightseeing. He loved moving around the country. Now, if you've ever been to Israel, you can imagine somebody going around and everything you'd ever learnt in the Bible, you're being pinpointed. So it's a similar situation. Everything that has ever been written in the Hadith, not the Quran. The Quran is not about Muhammad, but the Hadith is all about Muhammad's story. You keep meeting all these historical, whether it's a hill or locations like Makkah, Medina. So he was more or less a wanderer. He is what we call a rolling stone. He was somebody who he was ever on the move. And his character was more of a patrol reconnaissance in the army, in the British army. So he just loved being out and about. And then the only life in Saudi Arabia, or the Gulf, is going for the shopping malls, whether it's for clothes or for food. So that was the best form of release. And then the theme parks. Yeah, how do you call it? Ferris wheel, yeah, and whatever. Yeah.
So we're struck by how many of the pictures involve foreign dignitaries. There were a huge number of events, visits both in Uganda and out.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet any of the other world leaders at that time?
Him.
Gaddafi.
The strangest moment in my father's time was 1977. When Lumumba had died, he did something strange. He went for tonsillitis operation. They took me for sinus, the issue of this, the mucus. He had got sick of me having mucus always on my face. So he had taken me in the 70s. They used to just remove your sinus glands. Then they'd taken my sisters also for. Now he was in the very same jacket. I know that famous jacket because of the greenness. And we had just come out of the hospital. Nasser Abdallah was there, by the way, and no packing. Now Nasser had come for sinuses operation, and he scared me about that they're going to bring a kajambia. Kajambia is a machete. Just slice off your nose, then put a pump and pull out all the mucus. I was so shocked I refused to go into the operation theatre. But after that, he went to Sirte. There was a convoy, Italian. BMW is an Italian-style uniform. They wear like the Italians. In Libya, they wear like the Italians. We went and met him. Those are, I think, the beginnings of him liking desert life and tent life. I undermined him because of Dad's size. Dad was hefty. There was this tiny person, so I kept asking my sister, which one is Gaddafi? I said, don't you see the person he's talking to? That small man, he looks like a boy. Shh. I was talking just like a typical, that look, a sense of wonder.
We are struck that, it was a military government and there were a lot of soldiers around. Did you see soldiers at home? Were they there?
The bodyguards, formality. The police were always like that. The soldiers at work were always dressed like that. That's the Israeli dress, That's the Israeli dress code. You notice they're paratroopers, Right there, But occasions. Remember the parades? Yeah.
So how often would you have a parade at home?
No, the occasions. His day was the 25th of January. And then you'd have Independence Day. You would have parades. It's mainly those two. But the rest, you'll have tradition. He was a stickler for culture. Eh? Him and Mobutu went seriously for the culture thing. He would heavily involve himself. This is the Chinese ambassador. That's not Sihanouk. The other one is Sihanouk, but this is the Chinese ambassador, representative.
Chinese ambassador to
Uganda. Yeah. He's one of the famous ones who died in 77 and brought down my father, because in the estimate of the world, the death of a bishop and two of his ministers was, we always say the straw that broke the camel's back, in opinion. Yeah, they were tolerating whatever, but that's the moment. The death of Oriema.
So this is Oriema?
Yeah, that's Oriema.
Your father had a lot of engagement with international journalists. We see that in the archive as well.
Very much.
Did they come home? Did you ever see foreign journalists in your place?
When they took the other official picture, there's one particular official picture that I've not seen here. They would bother to question us, and also when Schroeder came for the 74, but it was with the young ones. Now Schroeder ended up with him, and him. The rest of us were considered older, so we were not in the picture. But in the Schroeder, you'll see a scene where they're trying to place Moses. The favorite son was trying to place. He's right there. I'm just asking why he. He's short. He's a short.
And he's the only one. I don't think he even put on a shirt.
So yes, and these are the American Black Empowerment movement. Yeah.
Was your father happy with that film, or what was his response to it?
The only thing he didn't like about the 74 film was this constant focus on the Jewish question. But remember, he had made an incendiary comment and a telegram to the UN. So for them, the Jews always have to focus on somebody else. Already from 73, they were moving towards 1975 when they were going to launch the 3379 resolution. It was a long, drawn-out process of trying to equate Zionism with racism and apartheid. So it started in 73, and the process was constant. And then the Palestinians had a knack for drafting a lot of his stuff. By the way, the most famous 33779 beautiful speech, it's actually on the top 10, were drafted by these professors from the Americans. Yeah? They really sat with him, and they sat with the intelligentsia within the OAU in Addis Ababa, and they wrote something for the chairman. It was, people read that speech and they're like, wow, it covers everything.
Let me ask you a last question. What is your overall feeling about this exhibition at this time?
You see, core will or political leadership is Marxist today. They think that everything starts in 86. But people like you, the fascination with my father is a constant. The fact that they kept these pictures, I'm like, no, he had given an order to burn everything. The year zero is supposed to be 86. When I see these, I'm like, wow, they're still there. And the people you're interviewing right now in the discussion there, they are people who were trained by him. Despite the person in Fort Portal who claimed he felt threatened, everyone felt threatened. Somebody who wants your job would say, whoa, I've just been in a top meeting and your name is on the list. It was a favorite way of getting somebody out so that I get in. The fact that they survived, they've never actually bothered to ask, did you really checkmate your fears and call his number? He had a mobile phone in the car 2024, you know, the original pioneer mobile telephony, but his was connected to the satellite he had set up.
Is that right?
So all my point is, as soon as you call that, he would pick. Hello. If you're brave enough, I think I'm having issues at work. They say you want to. Just bringing it out would ask him to actually pull in all the people and ask. And he would actually ensure some of his employees by whoever touches, he would say it in a strange way, whoever touches this person, disappear. It's macabre, but it's a threat that everybody took seriously. So if one of his favorite family photographers takes off and claims a swimming pool scene that just has a head in water, for me that picture is meaningless, apart from the tag that was up to his neck. Because of course, by invading Kagera, he had crossed the red line. Yeah, because it.
Thank you very much, Stefan.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I just wish my elder brother could show meaning to this.
So,
You people, I think you have your interview.